Hello and a very warm welcome to the channel. I hope you're all doing well. So I've used this channel to explore a few subjects that fascinate me, including American culture, and I've got another video on that today. So this is a reaction to the Infographics Show, which is a great little channel, link in the description of course. And the title is American Things Other Countries Find Weird. So I think this should be a good one. It should certainly be an amusing one. You're not weird, America. Don't listen to the nasty people. Very quickly, I have just hit 9,000 subscribers, which is crazy. I don't know how this happened. I mean, only about half of them are fake accounts I made, so, you know, and that's not true if anyone from YouTube's watching. But yes, I don't know how that's happened, but thank you so much. And if anyone else would like to subscribe, that would be fantastic. So I hope you enjoy, and let's go.
The word weird has come a long way since its origins in Old English. It was first related to destiny, or the power to control one's fate, and later was tied up with the supernatural. From there, it started meaning odd or uncanny. And odd and
so that's I came here to learn about American culture, and I'm getting a free English literature lesson as well. What's not to like? It's a bonus.
Uncanny is what we'll talk about today.
She's not weird. She's just a bit tall.
Every nation has some kind of collective idiosyncrasy, such as those Brits that certainly talk about the weather a lot, or those Japanese.
That's not true. For the record, the weather in the UK is always perfect. Therefore, no one has any reason to talk about it, and any claims to the contrary are fake news. Just wanted to make that clear.
That create cuddle.
That's a message on behalf of the British Tourist Board, by the way.
Cafes where lonely businessmen can repose in the warm embrace of a stranger by the hour or for the whole night. Male friends in some countries kiss when they say hello. Women in other countries hide their faces, and this can seem weird for those who...
I like to kiss male friends and hide my face. Unfortunately, that combination is not socially acceptable. Walking into a pub with wearing a balaclava and kissing people goes down really badly. So, just a warning.
Don't understand it. Today, let's look at just one country in particular.
USA!
In this episode of the Infographics Show, Weird Things Americans Do.
Let's go.
A bucket of coffee, please. Okay, so maybe it's not only Americans that do this, but we reckon Americans excel at it. In a story by British author Julian Barnes in the book Lemon Table, one elderly British woman points out how waiters in some restaurants habitually keep filling up her coffee. It's quite nice, in fact, but in Britain, such service would cost you a small fortune. And Americans...
Really? Is that normal in like all coffee shops, like Starbucks and stuff? Because we have Starbucks in the UK, and they don't like come around and have like a way to come around and fill up your cup, no matter how many times I ask them to do it, and sometimes get asked to leave. That's incredible if so. We get it. You get it a bit with what we call fizzy drinks, what you guys call soda. So you have like unlimited refills for that sometimes, and actually that's being banned under new health legislation either later this year or in 2022. I can't remember which. And it seems way more common in America. But you get refills in your coffee. Ah, wow.
Seem to drink coffee.
Did not know that.
Go to France or Italy, and in many cafes, you'll find your cup of coffee isn't cheap.
Yeah, you go to Italy and it's that big.
Americans are mass consumers of coffee.
That's the coffee, for the record, not anything else.
Coffee, and we doubt any country can match it. U.S. comedian Bill Hicks made a joke about Americans and their coffee habit before he died. The joke goes, he asked for a coffee in one restaurant, and the waiter said, "You want the 32-ounce or the large?" "How big is the large?" asked Hicks, and the waiter replied, "You'll want to pull your car around back. I'll start the pump." The beast of the feast. So
I honestly had no idea that was normal. I mean, back in Americans, could you clarify in the comment section? Is it normal if you go to like Starbucks to have like a waitress come out and top up your coffee? Because if so, that is amazing, and I will seriously consider emigrating on that basis alone. Even though I don't like coffee that much, just that level of service and generosity.
So you probably already know this, and you don't need to have visited the USA to have heard about it, but visitors often remark on how damn big portions are there. We've talked about this before, but not the real beast eaters. You see, in the States, all over the place, you've got those eat this ridiculously large, heart-stopping, gut-busting meal in 30 minutes and you get it for free. Godzilla would struggle to walk out of that deal without begrudgingly pulling out his wallet.
So I watched a show, it must have been like a few years back, called Man vs. Food. I mean, it was like an American show where a guy goes around America doing all his eating challenges. And they're insane. So it'll be like a burger, which is, I don't know, 1.5 feet tall. And usually manages it. The thing is, like, I shouldn't say this, but that show just makes me feel very, very hungry. I watch it for the wrong reasons, not for the sort of the challenge, just because I like looking at the food. No, I love the kind of like American diner style food. So like burgers and hot dogs and waffles, all that kind of stuff. Much prefer to kind of fancy posh restaurant food where you get like a very small quantity of quail or something. Much prefer the American diner.
Yet there are names on the plaque on the wall. But why would anyone literally make themselves sick and pay for it? Only an American could explain. The question was asked on Quora about this, and most people said food is cheap and big portions sell to the majority of people in everyday restaurants. But we like this answer, which kind of flips it. Your question might well be turned around to ask, why are portions in the rest of the world so small? The United States has a good food supply, and people expect value for their money. Knights everywhere.
I mean, I'm the sort of person who'd always like, if I see a challenge, I'll go for it. So if it's a challenge to eat a certain amount of 30 minutes, I'll go for it and almost certainly fail because I'm not a I'm not a speed eater. So yeah, I'm basically one of the people who goes to these restaurants and then gets ripped off by ordering the really stupid big meals and then failing to eat it in time.
You won't find this happening all over the place in the States, but you will likely be called sir, or for a woman, ma'am, at some point in your trip. It's very polite, and visitors will have nothing against it, but being called sir will feel strange for most. Perhaps if you're in the armed forces, it might work. Even calling cops sir seems weird to outsiders. For most people, you have to be knighted to be called sir, although...
Definitely the ma'am one is one I've noticed. So you get sir a bit in the UK, but it's really rare for like a cop to say yes ma'am or for anyone to say it. Where it seems to be quite common in America, or at least from my very limited experience.
So admittedly, some school kids in the UK might call their teacher sir.
Yeah, that's true. It's quite normal to call you teacher, sir, if it's a male teacher.
For Americans, it's a sign of respect. For anyone else, it's over the top. You'll find it's more common in the south of the US.
I do like how, definitely in parts of America, there's sort of like a culture of respect. So I'm thinking of, in particular, the way servicemen are treated, or servicemen and women. So when I was in America, both in New York and in Washington, D.C., I saw people come up to soldiers in uniform and say, thank you for your service. And you would never see that in the UK. That would just freak people out. Everyone involved would be far too embarrassed. But actually, I thought it was a really nice and respectful thing to do. Other opinions may vary, but I thought that was a really nice thing to do.
Smokes and drugs. This is weird to just about anyone outside of the USA. The fact that at some pharmacies or drugstores, you can buy cigarettes. While many pharmacies in the US stopped doing this, you can still find it. It does seem rather odd that the place selling you things to improve your health would be selling you those cancerous sticks of tobacco. In 2014, CVS pharmacies in the US stopped doing this, stating, "We came to the decision that cigarettes and providing healthcare just don't go together in the same setting."
Yeah, I can see it. I mean, in Britain, you have to sell cigarettes. You now have to have them behind. You can't have them on public display. So, like shops that sell them, corner shops and sort of supermarkets, they usually have like a kind of a panel that you pull backwards and forwards, and the cigarettes behind that. Because the idea is, if you have cigarettes on public display, they then become too appealing. And obviously they're sold in packets which have sort of pictures of the results of lung cancer and things on them. So the UK's got a really strong discouraging smoking culture. I'm starting to wonder if America might be slightly less, but at the same time, I haven't really noticed Americans smoking that much. So I don't know. I've been to places in Europe where it's like you're walking through fog.
Took a while to figure that out. Beer everywhere. While you must be 21 to buy beer in the United States, you can get it in some surprising places. One such place is the aforementioned pharmacy, but you can add to that. You can find beer.
Do Americans just go to the... Is Walmart just a pharmacy? Do Americans just go to the pharmacy to shop? It's just like one huge complex that also does, sticking plasters and antidepressants.
Beer sold in vending machines, at some clothing stores, some coffee shops, at some drive-thrus, and even some special hospitals will have beer for sale.
Okay.
These admittedly are rare. Accident.
I mean, you get that certainly in you get beer in a lot of places in the UK, but it is very different in some other countries even in Europe. So I went to Sweden. Sweden has a strong drinking culture, but it also has very restrictive drinking laws in terms of alcohol sale. So like sort of corner shop, what we in the UK would call corner shops, a kind of convenience store. They can't sell alcohol of more than I think about 2.5% or something like that. And to get anything higher than that, you have to go to these special kind of government-run stores or go to a bar. But so these are kind of alcohol stores owned by the state, which sell more powerful alcohol. When I was in Sweden, that seemed like insanely oppressive to me. But obviously, I guess if you grow up that being the culture, you'll be used to it. But yeah, I think UK, US are more similar.
Lawyers. If you've watched the show Breaking Bad, you'll know there's a lawyer who will make sure you get paid for an accident you had or even didn't quite have. In the US, you can see signs for these sometimes sleazy guys on TV or even see their shiny white teeth on giant advertising boards. This used to be weird in the UK, but over the last few years, the Brits are also getting in on accident claims.
Yeah, that's true.
And their TVs are also full of nice people saying, "Did you have an accident? Did you know you can get compensated for that?"
Have you been involved in an accident that wasn't your fault? Which is annoying because usually accidents I'm involved in are my fault, and I really resent that.
Call this number. Drug
Can't
dealers
sue
on
myself.
TV. The last thing you need when all you really need is some exercise and clean living is someone on TV telling you can buy a possibly addictive, happy drug that can solve all your problems. These commercials might have calming music, birds flying over rainbows, people skipping and dancing through the park, and then someone saying a wonder drug made that happen. The original Zoloft ad told you just shouldn't have to feel this way.
So to be clear, we're talking like medical drugs here, aren't we? Not recreational. I may be wrong. In which case, America, wow, you are out there. I mean, definitely drug culture is somewhere where the UK and US have started to diverge. So obviously, America in the last, I don't know, sort of decade or so has legalized or decriminalized marijuana in. I'm not sure if it's all states, but certainly quite a few states. Whereas the UK still has quite a restrictive policy. There are debates about whether that should be changed, but it does seem that perhaps availability of drugs is one area where there is a bit of a divergence happening.
Maybe not, but to many Europeans, pushing it on TV seems a bit too much. Drinking games. Now, for something a bit more fun, but still related to drugs, if you visit America, and certainly if you're young, you might get caught up in any number of drinking games they have over there. Beer pong, that's gotta be American. Or what about Truth or Dare?
So I have played beer pong, and I've played it with like the classic American cups in the UK, but that's seen as being like a very American thing to do. We have our own drinking games, of course. But like the beer pong, which I was pretty terrible at, to be honest. Not that I'm in any way resentful. Beer pong is definitely seems quite American.
Works better when alcohol has oiled the inhibitions. Or quarters. No cursing, no first names, no right hand accepting, no chance of staying sober.
How does this game work? So it sounds. There's a game in the UK called pennying. So basically, you get a penny, which is the kind of the smallest amount of currency you can get, and you drop it in someone's drink. And if it lands head side up, so the UK, all UK money has the Queen on one side and something else on the other side, like Mr. Bean or something. Not usually Mr. Bean, but if it lands head side up, the person then has to down the drink to stop the Queen from drowning, which I know sounds crazy and like the most stereotypical thing, but it's quite common in university. So you have to kind of like, especially when you've just got a pint, you have to be a little bit careful. No one drops a penny in it. I'd say is quartering like similar in some way? I want to know more about this, and I want to do it.
Even Drinkapalooza, an actual board game for drinking. In most other countries, drinking isn't always that much fun. What happens in America stays in America. Okay, so many of those videos out there on YouTube showing the glaring ignorance of some Americans about the rest of the world were made by Americans, so we don't feel like we are picking on Americans too much here. But it's not only just world history that some folks from the USA might not have read up on. We heard a story about a guy that asked an American friend when traveling in Europe what accent she thought she had. She replied, "I don't have one." She thought she spoke pure English. Another tale we heard was of a young man...
I mean, I think it's I've heard it quite a few times, and Europeans do it quite a bit, saying, "Oh, Americans are very ignorant of world affairs." But I don't really think that's true, or at least not more ignorant than Europeans. I mean, I've met British people who didn't know who the British Prime Minister was. There are just some people in every country who have other interests or who are not particularly well informed. But I mean, the other thing is obviously we focus very heavily on American politics. We're very interested in American politics far more, I'm sure, than the other way around. But that's just logical. And America is one of the world's one of only two superpowers, by far the most powerful country in the world. It's just natural that we follow American politics far closer than Americans follow European politics. I wouldn't expect an American to come in and have sort of like very strong opinions on who should be the next leader of the Liberal Democrats or something like that. And I think it's a little bit unfair sometimes when Europeans seem to expect Americans to follow like the politics of Romania in detail.
From West Virginia, who met some Brits while traveling in Israel. He asked the Brits how the highways were in England. The Brits, jokingly, replied they didn't have cars and still used the horse and cart. The guy replied, wow. When the question was asked on Quora, why some...
That's actually true. That it was a double bluff. Which this video is also participating in. Like, seriously, do not come to the UK. Like, everything you see in movies is fake. It's horse-drawn carts. It's basically like that Monty Python medieval movie, which was The Holy Grail. That's basically what it's like.
And we say some Americans don't know much about the world. The answers were mostly related to the education system, focusing only on the US and the country already being so big and diverse.
Yeah, that's also a good point. Like, America is massive. So when you've got 50 states, and each state, or a lot of the states, are the size of or even bigger than European countries. So I can totally get how, like if you asked a European to name like the governor of every state, or the state capital of every state, or even to point to a state in a map, most Europeans, including me, to be honest, would embarrass themselves, or wouldn't know the answer. So I totally get why it's the same with Americans answering questions about Europe or indeed other continents.
The American writer and intellectual Noam Chomsky wrote that the reason why Americans know so much about sports but so little about world affairs is because that's just the way the system was set up for most people. Is it weird? You'll find it everywhere, but those videos we see do seem to make some Americans seem quite ignorant of the world outside America.
You're not that bad.
Pointing where North Korea is on a map, but hate the country, there's a problem. Peeping Tom. Okay, let's stop being so harsh now. We'll turn to something amusing and ask why in the USA, some toilet stalls have such big gaps between the doors and the outer piece of the wall, so people can virtually watch you do your private business. Many Americans have asked this online.
Yes, this is one I think that really confused me. So last time I was in America, it would have been 2017. Went to New York, went to Washington, DC. All the toilets had like really high doors. It kind of felt like I was flashing people, basically. Which, I mean, there's nothing worse than inadvertent flashing. If I want to flash people, I want to do it properly into their face. For legal reasons, I want to be clear, I do not flash. But, so I remember I was on the Staten Island ferry, and I was in the toilet cubicle, and I was like, it sort of, once you sat down, it felt like the door finished like a couple of inches below your your private areas. So yeah, that really did surprise me. I don't know the reason. Perhaps it's safer if you pass out or something. That's the only thing I could think of. Or perhaps Americans are just much more open about their personal experiences than other people.
Foreigners ask this a lot too. One guy on Twitter writes, when you're sitting on the toilet and you make eye contact with someone through the little crack in the door. The woman asks, what's the point of a toilet stall door?
So I hadn't noticed that. The thing I really noticed was the gap at the bottom. I mean, if there's like a gap in the side as well. Just get rid of the door. Fuck it. Go all the way. Why not?
When there is a 2-inch gap on each side. Most answers we can find were related to safety, to know someone is in there, to get you out quickly, and making it easier to clean. There's a huge debate on TripAdvisor about the topic, but no one seems to know the answer. How are you? This could be said to be similar in other countries, but when Americans ask, how are you, they are not usually looking for an answer. It's just a way of saying hello. An extensive reply about your ingrown toenail, your setback in Bitcoin, and the fact your father didn't give you enough attention as a kid is probably not what...
I mean, as someone who has an ingrown toenail, a Bitcoin setback, and whose father didn't give him enough attention as a kid, this is really close to the bone. So, that's not true. Only 2 of those things are true. I'll leave it to you to work out which.
Your interlocutor was wanting or expecting. You can just answer with hey. The real home of...
We have exactly the same here, especially with all right. So all right is often used as a greeting, and like the usual reaction is like all right. You just respond with all right, or very occasionally yeah, fine. If someone goes all right or you all right, they're not really asking for like an in-depth exploration of your mental state. It's basically just another way of saying hello in the UK.
Football. Okay, as we've just had the World Cup of a game called football, we might as well go ahead and say that the rest of the world thinks America is weird for calling its strange stop and start game football. But we should.
I mean, I don't think that's totally fair. Like there are actually quite a few countries that that have something called football, which isn't called football in the UK. So in Australia, I think football usually refers to Aussie rules, which is an Australian game. If you haven't seen it, it's well worth watching. I don't understand it, but it looks fantastic. kind of how I view Quidditch in the Harry Potter films. But obviously in Canada you got the Canadian football. In Ireland, I think football is often used for Gaelic football, which is kind of similar to Aussie rules, but actually have very distinct histories. So there are quite a few countries that use soccer for football. It's not just America.
Tell you that it was the Brits that first called the game soccer, which is a diminutive of the words association football. The word sock comes from association.
So this is something posh people do. They add onto the back of random things. So like rugby becomes rugger, and then soccer, soccer association football, soccer. So like sometimes, basically, if you meet someone in Britain who's always adding onto the end of everything, Danners, Stevers, that kind of thing, they're probably pretty posh. So.
And the Guardian tells us
it's probably Prince Charles, let's be honest.
Us Brits back then loved to put an ER at the end of words. Later,
Yeah.
the Americans
Still
naturally
do.
called it soccer, just as the Brits did. Then the Brits decided the word soccer sounded too American and let it go. Now, the Brits and Europeans had been playing this football thing since medieval times.
I honestly think that British people only get slightly resentful of the name soccer because Americans use it. That's literally the only reason. Other than that, there's no problem with it, and obviously it's got like a long historic usage. So yeah, we probably should get over that one. Although I would be executed if I didn't go for football first.
And it was called football back then too. But there were many types of football, including rugby. That's why the word soccer became a thing. Americans just took the word football for their...
Yeah, but like, you can correct me if I'm wrong, and I may well be. My understanding is American football kind of developed out of rugby, but the two sports are... because they kind of... there's some similarities. The two sports are actually quite closely related. An American told me that the reason American football is called football is because the ball is a foot long. But I don't know if that's true. I googled it and it said it's not, so I'm not sure. If anyone can clarify in the comments, that would be fantastic. But yeah, I'm not sure.
Their own game, just as Europeans had done. But to be honest, American football is much closer to rugby, so it's still a bit weird. But let's just finish with saying, if any Brit or European gives you a hard time about calling the game soccer,
smack him in the
tell them what
face.
we told you. They started it. You have no defense, though, for calling a game played mostly with the hands football. So, can you add to this list?
Unless it is actually a foot long. So no, that was very interesting. The one that really surprised me. So the one that I totally agree with was the toilets. I do not get American toilets. Honestly, next time I go to America, I'd rather wear nappies or, as you guys say, diapers, and just avoid toilets altogether because that's how much in public humiliation I get in them. The one that really surprised me is that they're getting refills of coffee. I didn't know that was a thing. Again, maybe I'm misunderstanding it, but that sounds like amazing. But anyway, I now feel culturally enlightened, or certainly slightly more than I was beforehand. So I hope you enjoyed this, guys. I hope you found it interesting. So please do leave a comment, leave a like, subscribe, and I hope to see you for the next video.